Good evening, everybody. Today is day 24 of 365, just like that, of the greatest book ever written. So, thank you for joining me. I am going to just quickly post this so that people know that I am on right now. And let me see how this goes here. Let me see here. So, thank you for your patience. Okay. So, let me see here. Some people are joining. Day 24 of 365. Let me see. Okay. How's everybody going so far? I think I'm maybe a little slow on posting this. My apologies. Okay, it's starting to come through now. Okay. How you doing, Matt from Boston? Hi, Jules. How are you? So we are on to Genesis, I believe, 48. And I guess, Joseph is meeting with his dad, I guess right before he's about to die. And his dad's about to bless everybody. And so, actually, his dad blesses Manasseh and Ephraim. And so, basically, this is pretty interesting because Jacob decided to bless Joseph's youngest son and give him preference over his older son. And if you recall, maybe it was a few days. I should have some written notes on all this. If you recall, I think it was Jacob who ended up tricking his father, right? Abraham, and got the blessing over his older brother. And then it turns out that Jacob blessed Joseph's younger son over his older son. And so I do think it's pretty interesting that kind of followed in that tradition. I'm not, this, I guess the ending of this with Genesis 48 and with Genesis 49 was kind of a recap of everything that we just went through in the previous 47 chapters of Genesis. It kind of walked through Joseph's relationship to Jacob, Jacob's relationship to his father and grandfather, which, with regards to Abraham. And it was like literally how everybody's life was threaded together through this part of Genesis. And it is interesting. I guess when I'm reading this and thinking about the power that we have to bless, to be blessed by our parents or to bless our children, it's something that seems to have been lost in today's society. I think a lot of people don't realize that how they think about their own children or how their parents think about them as children, because that relationship never really changes throughout your whole lifetime. Anybody who's lost a parent, regardless of your age, it still feels as though you're a child when you lose them. Some people lose their parents when they are younger, which is unfortunate and sad. But that pain is probably, I would argue, is no different than if you lose your parents when you're 50 and they happen to be 80 or 90. The pain is still extremely intense and strong. And I do think this idea of the blessing flowing down to his children and to his grandchildren. I do think it's not just a blessing. There's an energetic effect that's taking place because we are all threaded together through our spirits. So when I think about Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I think about the Spirit is what's threading together the lineage, so to speak, of not just father and son, but also mother, daughter, mother, son, father, daughter, and that it all flows through. And so the question becomes, when Jacob is about to die, is the blessing something that is being done to kind of sever or make it less painful, that that loss of that connection, making it known that it's going to be okay by losing that connection, and kind of like putting a tourniquet on it. That's the best way I would describe it. If you think about losing a parent, or a parent losing a child, and vice versa, that loss is in some respects like an energetic bleed out, so to speak, and maybe prayers help to cauterize the wound. That's my takeaway from it. And obviously, I lost my parents. Fortunately, they lived a very long life. My mom's life was cut a little shorter. I mean, she only lived to, I think, 76 or so. My dad lived to be 89. And even with that, them having, when my dad died, he was 39 kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids. So he had a pretty big family that he was leaving. And it still didn't make it any easier, but I do think that they came to peace with it in both instances, both my mom and my dad. And part of it was when they know that we're leaving this world, they did pray a lot, and they did bless everybody before they left. So I don't think, I know that this story is about in Genesis, and they were Jewish, but I do believe that this isn't just about being Jewish or being Christian or Roman Catholic or any religion for that matter. I do think that this applies to every single human being, this connection between the parents and their children from a spiritual standpoint. Your spirit is brought into this world through your parents, through your mother, and so forth. And how do you think that spirit comes into being, right? It passes through your mother when you get here. And so it's a pretty powerful story, and it's a good recap from the standpoint that this kind of walks through everything. So even if you didn't have a chance to read about all the trials and tribulations, you kind of got a summary of what it all led to, which is obviously the 13 tribes of Israel, and all the descendants. Is it 12 or 13? I think it's 13. Hope I don't get that number off. But maybe I'm thinking 13 something else. It's in terms of, I think it's 13. Let me double check here. Just drive myself crazy. Yeah, the 12 tribes. I don't know why I was thinking 13. Okay. But anyways, the 12 tribes of Israel, that this kind of laid the groundwork for how that all came into being, and for how all these different these initial seedlings, so to speak, how all these seedlings, so to speak, sprouted into something more from an energetic level. What I did want to say is I did want to read out Joseph's, what Isaac said. I'm sorry. What Jacob said to Joseph, the blessing that he gave him. And this was when he put his right hand on Ephraim, though he was the younger boy, and his left hand on the head of Manasseh, even though he was the firstborn. So, it's not a coincidence. 13 bankers' families. Yeah, no, it's 12, folks. I got them mixed up. I don't know why I had 13 on my mind. Maybe because I was talking about the Federal Reserve and the 13 families, even though there are only 12 branches of the Federal Reserve in the United States. So maybe that's just it. Maybe there's one branch that's behind the scenes that nobody sees. But that was from an earlier broadcast today. So, anyways, what Jacob blessed Joseph, or blessed his children, and Joseph. He blessed Joseph and basically said, not basically, this is what he said: "May the God before whom my grandfather Abraham and my father Isaac walked, the God who had been my shepherd all my life to this very day, the angel who redeemed me from all harm, may he bless these boys, may they preserve my name and the names of Abraham and Isaac, and may their descendants multiply greatly throughout the earth." And this is where Joseph was upset because he saw his right hand on Ephraim's head. So he lifted it to move it, and he said, "No, the firstborn, this is my firstborn," because obviously, Jacob was blind, so partially blind or fully blind. So Joseph thought maybe he had just mistaken it, but his father knew exactly who he was blessing, and Manasseh will also become a great people, but his younger brother will become even greater. And so, it's pretty interesting because, we basically hear about Joseph's gift of second sight. We don't really discuss very often, it didn't come across as strongly. Most of the story revolves around Joseph, but that energy of second sight, so to speak, or being able to communicate directly with God, it's not so far-fetched that Jacob had that gift as well, and that Jacob had that gift of being able to foresee the future and what it held. Maybe he wasn't as vocal as Joseph, but obviously Joseph was much more sure of himself. Maybe there's a lot of different factors that come into place. Part of it is, the energy that Jacob received from his mother, and her spirit, between her spirit and then Jacob's spirit. Maybe it was a stronger circuit, so to speak, that impacted that entire connection that was had. So it's interesting, and there's something symbolic, I do believe, with Jacob wanting to pass. Sorry, hold on one second. Joey, stop, please. Joey. Shh. The little dog is acting up over here. Hey, Ronan, can you take the dogs out? Jilly, stop. Okay, sorry about that. Dogs heard something. And then they get a little worked up when they hear some strange sounds. But they are good little watchdogs if somebody's coming for me, folks. And so the one dog, jumps at anything. But anyways, Jacob blessing the younger son of Joseph. If you think about an energetic circuit, with the oldest being the start of the circuit. So the oldest that's alive being the start of the circuit, and then the youngest being the end of the circuit. Then even though, sorry folks, if everybody else's dog started barking. Dogs are pretty funny that way. We hear one bark, they all got to jump in. But in terms of Jacob being the oldest circuit of this line, this bloodline, this energetic line, and then Joseph's son being the youngest with regards to that circuit of that ability to be able to connect on a different level with the spirit, it makes sense that, at least from my perspective, it makes perfect sense why Jacob wanted to bless his youngest son, because that completes the circuit that's alive with regards to Joseph's bloodline and with Jacob, because Joseph is inside the bloodline, and then within that circuit his oldest son is before the youngest son, and then the youngest son, and the oldest of, in the bloodline, Jacob. When those two connect, they have a lot more power together. In terms of that blessing flowing to the youngest from the oldest. I'm not exactly sure why this all works. I just know that I've had conversations about it before. My brother-in-law is much better explaining this to me than I am, but there is when the oldest in the family, whether it be a grandparent or a parent, passes from this world and can flow, give that energy that they're leaving behind, so to speak, that last burst of energy. That's the best way to think about it. It's kind of like turning off a light switch, and that last burst of energy right before they die, if it flows to the youngest, it gives them a tremendous amount of additional energy to do great things with. And so, anyways, that's my take on it, and I do believe that is the case. So, because I've kind of lived through something similar, not to the same extent that they have, but being the oldest. My dad being the oldest and me being his youngest son, and how he passed, and that connection that him and I had versus my other siblings and such. And so, okay, Jacob's last words to his sons. This is pretty funny. If anybody's watched Seinfeld, I couldn't help but think of the Seinfeld with George's dad, Festivus for the rest of us. That guy. I think he recently passed too, but he is extremely funny. But anyways, when Jacob called everybody over and started saying, "You sons of Jacob, listen to Israel, your father," and so he starts going through and listing out the grievances of each of his kids. I'm sorry, I couldn't help but chuckle, because there's a little bit of humor is funny, because it really good humor relates to reality, and it relates to how things are kind of set up in history and so forth. And I think that's what makes humor funny, is that we can all kind of the bro's ear. Yeah, that one too, the bro. But but in terms of him walking through each, I don't want to read out each one, but if you haven't taken the time to read Genesis 49, you should definitely read it. And I'll just read like one or two, because they're just too funny. I mean, I got a big kick out of reading them. Okay, let me see here. And I mean, some of these are pretty bad, folks. Like, Reuben, you're my firstborn, my strength, the child of my vigorous youth. You are the first in rank and first in power, but you are unruly as a flood, and you will be first no longer. For you went to bed with my wife. You defiled my marriage couch. That's pretty harsh, and it's true that, this is what happened. But then Simeon and Levi, you're two of a kind. Their weapons are instruments of violence. May I never join in their meetings. May I never be party of their plans. For their anger, they murdered men, and they crippled oxen for sport. Now, I know I talk about Seinfeld from the funny perspective about the airing of grievances, but these grievances that he's giving his children, these are legit, folks. These are really harsh criticisms and observations that he made of his children. And even though they are his children, there's something to be said about him speaking the truth about what he thinks they did wrong, and how they've not done the right thing during various stages of their life, and making it very public, so to speak, and explaining what they did wrong. And what they'll be remembered for by their dad as he's leaving this world. I do think it's a much needed and healthy process. Oftentimes, we go through life, and especially nowadays, death is treated differently among some people in the U.S. than I guess some people that maybe are first generation. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going off of maybe some limited observations. People that are first generation or have parents from I guess from Europe or different parts of the world, they have different traditions, and you want to clear the air, and you want to get rid of any of that negative energy before you leave this world, and not take any of that, any hard feelings, harsh feelings with you before you leave this world, and so that you have a clear conscience and a clear spirit leaving to the other side, but also so that if there is any type of negative feeling or animosity or something that you felt wasn't resolved before you leave this world, the other side has a right to know too, so that they can maybe pray and ask for forgiveness and do what they can to reconcile what they did wrong. And so it works both ways, folks. He might have did it. Maybe they didn't want to hear it. Maybe they're embarrassed by it. Maybe they regretted it and they never expressed their regret. But the reality is they left it all out there, and I think that's extremely important, and it needs to be done. And fortunately, I personally happen to think that some of this stuff should be done, along the way. And when you go through life, it shouldn't just be done at the end of life. But that as Maria says here, it requires wisdom and grace and forgiveness and love to be honest and love them that way. And obviously when he knows he's out the door, he doesn't, when someone's dying and they know they're about to leave this world, they really don't care what you think about them on the way out. From that perspective, if they're going to hurt your feelings, they don't feel, if they hurt your feelings by telling you the truth, they have less attachment to being concerned about them hurting your feelings, because they know they're gone. They're going to be gone in this physical form. Maybe their spirit will still be with us, and their energy, but because they're on the way out, there is something to be said about hitting the state, as the Japanese would say, satori. When someone's about to die, and this I guess this happened a lot during wars. When they would study people that had almost died in a war, or something happened where they said you'd be in a town that was being bombed. You look up, there's a bomb coming at you. You're toast. Like here's a bomb coming. You're about to get wiped out with a bunch of other people, and so you kind of said your piece, and you're ready to go. Like you're ready to die because this bomb's coming right at you, and then it hits and it's a dud. And so you experienced the benefit of knowing that you were going to die, and that you got the clarity and peace of mind of knowing that everything that's happened into the world, everything that has happened up to that moment in time and that point of life was perfect. There is nothing that wasn't meant to happen. Every single detail, everything that happens in your entire existence, nothing was, as much as we think it was chance, it wasn't. Everything was perfect. It perfectly played out the way it should have been played out, with all the events that occurred prior to that moment through time. And it was all weaved together perfectly to what happened at that particular moment. And, when people would hit that state of satori, they would come back, and believe it or not, they would become some of the most creative people in society, and they would truly transform the world because they experienced firsthand what the meaning of life is. And sometimes the only way you can really appreciate the meaning of life is to really, sense, feel, understand your own mortality and how quickly your life can be gone. And I think this all ties together to this story, because he was in fact when he was unleashing any of this negative energy, he was reaching a state of satori. From and once again, all the major religions in the world, they have some overlap, folks. And and I sometimes I do think that some principles are stronger than others. And that's just my personal belief. There's some core ideas that are kind of the root of other ideas. So there's different branches of knowledge, and you want to try to find the trunk of knowledge. But finding that trunk of knowledge, and recognizing the branches, it helps bridge the gap between the differences that we see around the world. And the example I like to use is the elephant. Like if you have a bunch of different people that are touching an elephant that are have blindfolds on, and they were asked to describe it, some people might grab grab the ears of the elephant. Other people might grab part of the tusk, or grab the snout. Other people might grab a leg, and they all are describing what they feel and what they sense of the elephant. And in their minds, because of how vast and how big the elephant is, they may not be able to get a sense and touch the entire elephant. So they don't sense the whole thing. They know something more is there off of what they feel. But in some respects, different types of religion around the world through time have grasped different parts of this proverbial elephant. And the question becomes for you, and everybody has to go through their own process of determining which religion, which faith resonates most with them and connects them most spiritually to their God. For me, it happens to be the Roman Catholic faith, and that's not to say that I haven't studied other religions, which I have, and I highly suggest, or I highly recommend that people do that. There's a lot to be learned from other religions, and so forth. But anyways, I do agree. Somebody mentioned that the United States is going through its own version of a near-death experience, and I think there is some truth to that, because if you look at right now, they're talking about. I hear you, Jacob. All religions are shadows, but you have to remember, from my perspective, and this is just me. I don't like to force anything. If you guys haven't noticed, I try not to force any ideas onto anybody about anything, about the markets, about my philosophy on life, how things should be, what I think is the right answer. Maybe I did when I was younger, and if I did, I apologize, because I don't think that's the way to do it. Obviously, maybe I have a bias now because I don't do it that way. But I do think people have to find the answer for themselves, and you can try to, it's like you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. It's that kind of philosophy that the feeling that someone's going to have when they make the connection that I think everybody's capable of, it can change on the drop of a hat or in a moment in time. And that feeling, what I would argue, or not argue, I would suggest it probably feels like, for people that do experience it, is probably like if anybody who's ever been in love. If you think about the first time you fell in love, you can write it out on a piece of paper what you think it is. And some people they've written books and stories and songs about love. And you can feel their sincerity when you read their works, and you read you listen to their music, that they really feel those words, right? Then you can sense the ones that are just full of shit, the ones that they're just kind of trying to write it because they think it's going to make them some money. And what I'm saying is that sensation, how many different things flow into that moment that create that connection that occurs. You know, I don't really know. I don't think anybody really does know. Maybe they're trying to map it all out, but the number of connections in our brain is just off the charts. It's like, I think it's trillions of connections. Each neuron in our brain has up to 10,000 different connections. So if you think about how many neurons we have in our brain, it explodes into the trillions of possibilities. So that, think about it like a combination lock. If your brain has trillions of connections, and then you meet another brain or spirit, and the two of you click a specific way, and it triggers it's funny because here's the fractals coming in again, almost like a nuclear reaction, like you're creating some type of connection on a level that you don't fully comprehend, this chain reaction that occurs. But then once it occurs, it transforms your brain permanently and transforms your reality of how you see the world. And so obviously, and you take it to the next level and have kids, it does it again. So anyways, that's my take on it. So I don't try to do anything where I'm trying to tell people what they need to believe or not believe. Either they're going to find their own path, or they're going to. All you can do is present as much data and evidence as you possibly can. I do agree that when you read the Bible, it does restore your pathways in your brain, and I do think that what the Bible does, when people do read it, it not just restores those pathways. I think it acts as a shield to kind of clear out some of the gunk that's trying to come in to our spirit, into our space. And frankly, when you do read it, like I find myself, I'll give you the perfect example. I've been doing this. This is day number 24 for me, and anybody who's joined me, you maybe you've noticed this as well. I don't know, but what I've noticed by reading the Bible, and my wife has noticed this as well, is I'm kind of chuckling about it because she's been asking me to get a little less judgmental about certain things, that I see in the world around us. And, she's been telling me, like, the whole time she's known me, you can be a little harsh at times, and maybe you need to dial that back a little bit. You might be more effective. And there's my ego saying, well, I like the way I am doing it that way, and that's, I think we all might do that at times, and I'm not any different than anybody else. It's like, I like to express myself with, terse language, I guess. And she says, yeah, I hope you feel good about it, because then it turns off blank, blank, and blank, when you do that. And so by reading it, reflecting, think about all these different lives, looking, I kind of compared it. I was talking to a couple of people about this today, actually. And one of the things I said was, the Bible is like the alpha and the omega set. So in mathematics, when you're doing analysis and you're creating sets of data, and then you're looking at subsets of that data, or as they say, sigma algebras. So in mathematics, one of the things, the way I structure the world, is I'll look at, what is the entire alpha and the omega. So in the case of alpha and omega in mathematics, with setting up that set, there's the null, which is like nothing, zero. It's completely empty. The entire space is empty. And then the omega is every single observation, every single data point that exists. And so you have like absolute nothingness, and you have everything in between. Okay. So the sigma, when you look at the null and the omega or you can kind of look at it as the alpha and the omega. And then you break apart and look at a sigma algebra within that set that is a sample set of what the omega looks like. And so when you do that, and you kind of peel out a sigma algebra or a subset of that entire omega set, and you try to understand what does the whole look like. So that's the best way to think about it. You pull out a sampling of this data or this information within all of the information that's available, and you try to determine what does it mean, and then you do another one, and you compare that other sigma algebra set to one sigma algebra set, and then you take another one, and you take another one, and you kind of construct a distribution of what the closest reality can be without having all the data to reflect the entire reality. And so, where am I going with this? I just lost. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when we're, I guess what I was saying is, looking at that and looking at the stories in the Bible. All the stories in the Bible is the best approximation of the omega set of human knowledge and wisdom with regards to human relations among different peoples. And some people go through life and they pick up a couple sigma algebras. They take 1, 2, 3 stories out of the Bible. And sometimes they do it directly by reading the Bible. Other times they pick up the story from people they interacted with. So they run into somebody who has read the Bible, who's living those principles, and they pick up the sigma algebra from that. So they just picked up a little bit of data or a little bit of knowledge about the bigger whole of the Bible. And then somebody else runs into somebody else, and they pick up another one. And what I'm trying to say is, if you want to pick up the entire omega set of knowledge and how you structure your life, now this is coming from somebody who has never read the Bible cover to cover in 1 year, folks. So I've read it over time, and I've been, reading the whole, the Bible in various pieces and slivers my entire life, but I've never tried to read it all within a specific period of time. But what I will say was, by forcing myself, not forcing, it's a personal choice, I wasn't forced to do it, but by making a decision to pick up all these lessons in a shorter period of time, I think the lessons are they weave together a little better than they would by picking them up in piecemeal. The best way to I guess I can relate to it is, if you are working on a 50-step math problem, if you did 2 steps and then you wait a week to do the 3rd step, and then you wait a week to do the 4th step, you might forget where you were on the 3rd step and the 4th, you might forget the first 1 and 2 steps once you get to step 30, if too much time passes. And so if you read it and there's more continuousness in the time crunch that you're using, it'll pick up a completely different meaning. I think you'll pick up more insights because it's all being threaded together. So anyways, that's what I happen to think. And you guys, if you think it's worth looking into or thinking about for yourselves, I highly recommend that you think about the problem from the standpoint of the entire omega set of the Bible. That's why I said it would be pretty cool to map it all out mathematically, because if you took all these lessons and you mapped it out, it would be cool to see what that looks like, and I don't know, maybe somebody's already done this. I have no idea. I haven't looked. And sometimes I like to come up and think about ideas, but we're not looking to see if anybody else has looked into them, because sometimes if I look into whether or not someone came up with the idea, I get lazy and then don't explore it more myself. So anyways, That's one of the reasons why I refuse to look into something until I've looked at it myself without any interference or anybody tainting my view. I don't mind looking at other people's view after I kind of develop my own, but I think everybody would benefit greatly if they considered that approach, because our brains are all unique and special, and they have a different perspective. And so if you can take a snapshot as you learn through, you look at the world and you see things from your own vantage point, that nobody else in the world can look at it that way at that moment in time, and you kind of snap it first and then look at other people's insights, I do think it'll give you a deeper appreciation for your own mind. I do believe that. And so I highly recommend it if you don't do that already. And I think that that's a skill that all of us should have, is to really tap into, how much potential we each individually have, which is unlimited. And everybody has unlimited potential of what they can create. We're all made in God's image, and God wants us to behave as such in God's image, in that we can create a lot more than we ever imagined. We just unfortunately live in an environment where they're trying to crush that out of us and kill religion. So then, this is another story of Jesus feeding people with not a whole lot of food. And once again, this is metaphorical as well as actual. Then Jesus called his disciples and told them, "I feel sorry for these people. They have been here for 3 days, and they have nothing left to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, or they will faint along the way." "So how much bread do you have?" Jesus asked. 7 loaves and a few small fish. So he had them all sit down. Same thing. He blessed the food, handed it out. 4,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. And then Jesus sent them home, got on a boat, and crossed into the region. Okay, and they picked up 7 large baskets of leftover food. So once again, it's figurative, I think, and it's literal, and it's also figurative. The Word of God and the lessons to be had from studying the Bible, they will always overflow. And I think that the metaphor of bread, the bread of life is the knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God is available to all of us. And we can choose to eat the bread of life, which in this case, the bread is the Word, the truth that exists within the Bible. You will always have abundance. You will always be able to figure out what needs to be done, because the answers are within. The Bible helps unlock the full power of our brains. I do believe that. So if you want to unlock your brain for its full computational power and kind of turn on all the cores, so to speak, using IT jargon, then you can do that. I think anybody can, by reading the Bible, and in so many respects, it is the manual that truly not only unleashes our spirit, brings it to its fullest potential. It unleashes the full power of our mind, and then if our minds are fully unleashed and it's connected with our spirit, it drives a connection to other human beings and their spirits and their minds. So it's a pretty remarkable thing. And so, if you want to break up power in a society, and you don't want people in that society to realize how much power they have when they all connect and form, in a sense, I like to use the examples in the real world, because a lot of the world is designed by the way we behave as human beings. Our systems, our organs, our brain, our physiology, all these systems that we take for granted that we are all individually born with. These systems is how our world is constructed. That's the real brilliance. Everybody's like, wow, those people are so smart of what they designed. It's like they just literally took what we're all innately born with, that we're all designed this way. We have sensors, our eyes sense all this information and bring it into our brain. we touch, we can, heat, cold, all these different other senses, smell, taste. We're like this perfect device to experience life. And when you think about it, we not only are we experiencing this on an individual level, we have the ability to connect with other people and experience it on a completely unique and special level by connecting with other people and having an experience together as a small group, as one-on-one with one other person, or a larger group. And then that whole feeling and experience will be wired into our brains a different way. And it's really amazing. And the attack on God and the attack on religion by these Satanists, you can't call them anything else, but that's what they are. The Satanists, the /communists, know that the real threat is human beings being connected and seeing them for the lies that they are, that they're nothing more than they're nothing more than demons in human flesh, and that they want to separate and break us down to keep us from seeing the truth. And the truth is seeing evil for what it is and calling it out and not being afraid to get rid of it and do the right thing. And so, okay, so let's go on to Matthew 16. You know the saying, red sky at night means fair weather tomorrow. Red sky in the morning means foul weather all day. You know how to interpret the weather, signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times. Only an evil, adulterous generation would demand a miraculous sign, but the only sign I will give them is the sign of the prophet Jonah. This is when Jesus was asked to perform a miracle and to show that he was in fact the Son of God and had authority from heaven. And that's how Jesus responded. And he basically added, you have so little faith. Why are you arguing with each other about having no bread? Don't you understand even yet? Don't you remember the 5,000 I fed with 5 loaves and the baskets of leftovers you picked up? Or the 4,000 I fed with 7 loaves and the large baskets of leftovers you picked up? Why can't you understand that I'm not talking about bread? So again, I say, beware of the yeast of Pharisees and Sadducees. So, this goes back to what I was just talking about with regards to the bread as a metaphor. The bread is the word, is the life, and that with it, each person transforms bread, right? If you think about it, in Roman Catholicism, the bread goes through a transformation. The priest literally transforms the bread into the body of Christ. If anybody who's Roman Catholic, you know what I'm talking about. The bread is transformed into the body of Christ. Well, you can believe it metaphorically, you can believe it literally, but the bread, as it's transformed to the body of Christ is the word of Christ. And so the word of Christ, if you live it in your heart, you will have everlasting life. So if you live with the truth, you will live with everlasting life. And so that's how everything is weaved together. So I think that's how that all ties together with what Jesus is saying with regards to the bread, that it was never just about the bread, it's about the Spirit, and the Spirit of Christ and the Word of Christ in the bread. Okay, Psalm of David. Let me see here. So, in times of trouble, may the Lord answer your cry. May the name of God of Jacob keep you safe from all harm. May he send you help from his sanctuary and strengthen you from Jerusalem. May he remember all your gifts and look favorably on your burnt offerings. May he grant your heart's desires and make all your plans succeed. May we shout for joy when we hear of your victory and raise a victory banner in the name of our God. May the Lord answer all your prayers. Now I know the Lord rescues his anointed king. He will answer him from his holy heaven and rescue him by the great power. Some nations boast of the chariots and horses, but we boast in the name of the Lord our God. Those nations will fall down and collapse, but we will rise up and stay firm. Give victory to our King, O Lord. Answer our cry for help. So I really like this one. This is Psalms 20. You know, what makes a nation, folks? Right now, we live in the greatest nation in the history of the world. I do believe that. I do believe America is the greatest nation in the history of the world. But what makes America the greatest nation in the history of the world, from my perspective, is not that it's just here and that, it's been here for 240 years and we have a great history. That's not what makes it great for me. That's never what's made it great for me. What makes America the greatest nation, in my mind, and from my perspective, from what I've experienced in this life, is that it's the nation where the largest number of free, independent spirits they were able to give it their all and create a life for themselves, for their children, for their grandchildren, that they could not create on any other place on this earth. And people and spirits have come from every corner of this earth to enjoy that, have that privilege and enjoy that opportunity to become all they can be. And that's what makes America so beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies. America is beautiful because it allows each and every human being of every I guess lot in life, every creed, every color, every whatever you want to say, however you want to define human beings, but all these independent people from all over this planet, not just now, but throughout its entire history, it has attempted. You got to remember, no other nation on this earth has attempted to allow every single species of humans, because if you think of us as species, right, there's species of birds, there's species of dogs. Now, granted, we all have the same soul beneath our physical appearance, and we all have probably DNA that's 99.99999% the same. But at the end of the day, we are all a little different. We have cultural differences. We have eating habit differences. Like, for example, I can eat spicy food now. I couldn't eat it before, but I still can't eat too spicy. But anyways, I'm just making a joke. But there's certain types of things that are more palatable to our taste buds and what our body can process. But with all these different differences about what makes us all tick, we come to a country where we try to have a unified language, so it's easier for us to communicate our differences, which I think makes us special. Some people think our differences can be weaponized against us. That's what the world that we live in right now. But that's not always the case. Okay, that we don't have to buy into that argument that we have to try to use it in a weaponized manner. But it's tough when they keep beating the drum of this. But when people really get down to it and they feel that energy of their spirit and hold communion with other human beings, communion being they have a divine connection to sharing in this experience of being able to unleash their full potential and the potential of their children, and try to create a community that supports and fosters that, within respecting each and every person's individual rights without trampling on their rights in the process is the key. Then I do think, I do think that that's special and unique, and I don't think there's any nation in this world that's ever come close to fully realizing God's vision of that as the United States has. And even when nations, you would think they would have an advantage when it's all the same type of people and they're all just one race or one group and one religion. And I got news for you, folks. those nations have not been able to pull off what the United States has been able to pull off, because our nation is founded in bringing the best of this out in every single human being. And when you can do that, you unite all this power and insight and wisdom, collective wisdom from different cultures, all into one location in one nation. And that's why I do believe that America's greatest days will always be ahead of it, as long as we never lose that. We never lose our heritage to what does it mean to be an American and why America is great. America is great because all the peoples of the world believe that this is the best spot for them to experience and unleash their greatness on an individual level and as a group. So anyways, that's my takeaway on this one. Let's see. So now we're going to go to Proverbs 4. Okay. My child, pay attention to what I say. Listen carefully to my words. Don't lose sight of them. Let them penetrate deep into your heart, for they bring life to those who find them and healing to their whole body. This is perfect. So here we go. My child, listen to the words as they penetrate your heart. I do believe that the word of Christ in the Bible and these lessons, as they flow into your heart energy, your heart chakra, and they flow into your mind, your other chakra, it unleashes the ability for you to heal yourself. When you heal your thoughts, you can heal your body. A lot of the illnesses that we face, the pains that our body goes through, it happens because our mind is ill or our spirit is ill. And so if you can restore some of your spiritual and mental health by using a guide at your own pace, which is the greatest book ever written, you will find yourself restoring your own physical health by asking and praying. When you pray, sometimes not only are you praying to God, you have that, if you have that connection with God, you're praying to unleash the power of your own body to help heal itself, which is pretty remarkable. Our brains have the capability of unleashing various chemical reactions and processes in our body to get to work and clean up its own mess, which is pretty wild. But I do believe it's true, and I personally know it's true for me. I was able to. I had I had hip surgery when I was a young kid, about 13, and then when I got older, my hip was grinding away at the other hip, and I didn't even know it. I had bone-on-bone arthritis. I had 20% mobility before I had my other hip surgery, and the doctors asked me, they go, Bobby, how are you walking around with your hip grinding away at your socket, the top of my femur? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, you should be in excruciating pain and you shouldn't be able to walk. And I said, oh, well, years ago, I just turned that off. And they go, what do you mean turned it off? I said, after I had the surgery when I was a kid, the pain was insane. It was like throbbing nonstop. Like I had the surgery, and the pain was so overwhelming that I would just meditate and pray on it. And then I just literally just imagined turning off the circuit. I just imagined that the nerve endings of that bone in that area, I'm just going to turn it off. And it took me a few days, and I turned it off. And I haven't felt any pain since, And so fast forward 20 years, and, my bone is grinding away, and I shrank an inch, half an inch to an inch, not realizing, that this is happening. So you got to remember, when you do stuff like that, there's repercussions. It turns out that the only reason why I ended up going to the doctor is because I lost mobility. So I didn't understand why I was losing mobility, that I could not use my socket the way I once did. But my pain sensors weren't telling me, hey, Bobby, you got a problem. You keep doing this, you're going to lose mobility. So anyways, when I'm saying you have the ability to do this, I'm giving you an example of how I did it, just with pain, with regards to pain. And maybe this is why when I had surgery and they tried to give me, Oxycontin, it didn't work for me. I literally gave it back. I think I gave it back to the doctor or whatever, because they gave it to me for my surgery. And I said, I don't think I need any pain medicine. And they said, you're going to need it. And I said, I don't think so. But, you prescribe it anyways. And I took one and it didn't do anything for me. And I actually took something else, which is much lower grade, painkiller. That was okay. But I didn't really feel a strong desire to take anything. And I try not to take anything now anyways, because I do think it messes with your gut biome. So a lot of these drugs really mess up your gut bacteria. And I think that's why we have a lot of health problems. And frankly, I think that's why the obesity problem in this country is as bad as it is. I don't think a lot of it stems from most people overeating. I think it stems from the assault on our gut bacteria through chemicals that they put into manufactured foods, things that they put into our water and everything else. And I think that that's what's causing these other health ailments, not including, if you look into a movie about, I think it's Teflon. Teflon was made widespread across the United States and around the world. And, as we were cooking on this material, it made it more difficult for our body to absorb certain types of nutrients and process our food properly. And that's created a whole slew of problems, people. And I think we've all, unfortunately, been impacted by Teflon. And so there's a movie about it. There was a huge lawsuit that was settled, but you should look into it if you don't know anything about that. So guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. Look straight ahead and fix your eyes on what lies before you. Mark out a straight path for your feet. Stay on the safe path. Don't get sidetracked, and keep your feet from following evil. All awesome advice. This is Proverbs 4. It's really hard to find a single word or sentence there that isn't perfect. And I do think, I do think that you should reflect on this and how you might be able to use some of these lessons in your own life. Staying away from this insanity. We all kind of heard. I don't watch I don't watch TV, so I just saw something I think it came across the wire about two female entertainers, if you want to call them that, just sound like prostitutes. Were performing some kind of sex act on TV, and think that it's empowering or something. These people are sick. They're evil. They're demonic. They do it in public. There's no, there's no outrage by the public as there once used to be. They're using our public airwaves. I think that these stations should be banned. These stations should lose a day or 2 days of revenue. They should be taken off the air when they perform this type of insanity, undermining the young women of this country and disrespecting all the other women as well. So it's not only negatively impacting our young girls, it's disrespectful to all women. Not just in the United States but worldwide. And these people should be ashamed of themselves. And they should be boycotted. I don't think that anybody should buy any of their albums and records, because you're just supporting evil. And that's what I think. I think that this is an example of that perversion that's taking place right before our eyes. And we need to band together and start doing something about it. And the way you have to deal with evil, sometimes you hit them in their pocketbook, take away their resources, don't watch their stuff, don't buy anything, don't support those businesses, find alternatives. And if enough of us start to do that and we keep doing it, we'll gain more and more power. And then you support other companies and businesses and people that share that value and that belief system. And, piece by piece, we'll replicate kind of what Joseph did, right? In Jacob with the 12 tribes of Israel. We'll create a new slew of descendants of our own that follow our faith and go restore our faith to the greatest book ever written, and that our children take these lessons and go forward, because we're not going to be able to do it by ourselves, folks. We have to start trying to live this way by following the truth, so that our children have examples in us on how they should be living their lives and pass along those lessons to their children. So anyways, that's about it. Went over an hour, folks. I'm trying to kind of keep it short, but sometimes it seems to keep going. So with that being said, thank you all for joining in. May God bless you, your family and friends. May God continue to bless the greatest nation in the history of the world. And may peace be with you. And if for some reason you don't have peace, I do believe that if you put God first, peace will find you. And so with that, have a wonderful evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. God bless.